my friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Tori if you're new. I am so stinking happy that you're here. Today we get to go through my May wrap up. We read 15 books. I say we. I read 15 books in May and let's talk about them. So grab your coffee, your tea, your water, grab a snack, and let's talk about some books. We're gonna start from my lowest rated books and work our way up to my highest rated of the month. I do have a handful that I decided not to give a rating, and it's not because I didn't like them. I actually enjoyed them, but I'll tell you why I didn't rate them. So we'll talk about those first. The first book that I didn't give a rating but I read in May was What Happened to You by Dr. ? Bruce D. Perry. It was also co-authored with Oprah as well. This book is about how your brain develops surrounding traumatic experiences in your life. Bruce D. Perry is a neuroscientist, if I'm not mistaken, and also a psychologist. So he pairs his two areas of study very well, and he explains very well, working through some of that information about if you have a traumatic experience happen to you when you're an infant or a toddler, how that is going to impact your brain development and the rest of your life, versus if a traumatic experience happens when you're older, and things like that. It was very, very interesting. It's obviously a nonfiction. I like to read these very slowly, so I really did read it throughout the entire month of May, and I kind of journaled my way through that book. And so I just don't feel great about giving nonfiction books a rating, because it's like, I was really internalizing and trying to relate his teachings to my personal life experiences, and I don't really feel like I can rate that like a 3-star or a 5-star or whatever. So it has no rating. I did really enjoy that book and I got a lot out of it, and I would recommend it to you if that's a book that you think would be helpful for you as well. The other books that I didn't give a rating were Death Notes volumes 2 through 5. So I read 3 Death Note volumes this month. I just continue to enjoy them more and more and more as I continue on with that series. But for me, rating mangas and graphic novels is really difficult because I feel like I either give them a 3-star or a 5-star, and there's no in between. I just really enjoy the story. I really enjoy the art style. I very much enjoyed them. I'm just not going to give them a star rating on this list. Now that those are out of the way, we're going to talk about my lowest rated book of May, and I'm really upset about it, to be honest. It was My Dearest, Darkest by Kayla Cottingham. So I'll pop up a picture here because I read it on my Kindle. This is a new release that just came out this year. It's also her debut novel, and so I do feel bad about the things that I'm going to say, but this is my opinion. I think that the plot and the premise of this story was extremely creative. So this story is a sapphic horror. It takes place at a university in Maine. I thought that the setting of the story was fantastic. It's like a university by the sea, very gloomy, rainy all the time. Wonderful. We follow our main character, Finch, who on her way back from her audition to kind of get accepted into this school, gets in this crazy car crash with her parents, and she ends up drowning. But 30 minutes after she's drowned, she finds herself on the riverbank. She's alive, her parents are dead, but she has changed. But she's alive, and so she ends up going to the school, and weird things keep happening. She encounters this spirit that is seemingly very nice and very helpful for reasons that are yet to be uncovered, and they're trying to figure out whether the spirit has a nefarious intent or if she's truly helping just to help. that's the best way that I can describe it without giving anything away. This book, I think, really struggled with the writing style. Like, I just don't think that it felt very disconnected at times between the relationships that were developing between the characters and the main plot story. It just fell flat, in my opinion. The plot was extremely predictable as you started to get more and more into the story. The antagonists weren't interesting at all because you knew what was going to happen like from the beginning. And so the conflict was boring, and the conflict was like the main storyline. The next book is Earth's End by Elise Kova. This is the third book in the Air Awakens series, and it's on Kindle Unlimited. I don't know why this book was such a struggle for me this month. And it was totally me and not the book, because I have loved and been so invested in the other books in that series up until this one. This was a book that I actually started like last year, and then I put it down maybe 30% of the way through the book, so I picked it back up. And I was just struggling. I had no motivation to keep returning to that book, and I had to like force myself to finish it. And I still love the main character in that story, but I really didn't like what we started discovering about the other like love interests and the other like side characters. So will I continue on with that series? Yes, I'm like determined, and I did like where that book left off. I think it was just me. It was totally me and not that individual book. I have to return to it when I'm really like in the mood for a YA fantasy, because it's a stunning series. I was just having a very weird reading month in May at times. Honestly, my romance reads of May were some of my absolute favorites, and so the next book that I want to talk about is A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. It's actually appalling that I don't have a physical copy of this book. Like, I should order it because I cannot stop thinking about this book. Who am I? I am not like a true romance girly, but this book had me in a chokehold. So this book, we follow our two main characters. They're at a very elite preparatory school, and they are rich out of their stinking minds. Like, they have so much money they don't know what to do with. What a problem to have. So our female main character is the good girl. She is the it girl. She is absolute perfection. Every girl wants to be like her at their school, and they are seniors in high school, I believe. She is super feminine, super girly. She wears her like school uniform with Mary Jane Doc Martens, and as soon as she started doing that, all the other girls at school wanted to wear Mary Jane Doc Martens with their uniforms. Like, she is just the Serena van der Woodsen of this school, except she's a virgin. And it's very well known. She wears this like purity ring that was given to her by her father, and it was like her promise that she would not have sex until she was married. And it's like a big thing. Like, everyone knows that about her. And our male love interest is the like bad boy playboy of the school, and he's the rule breaker. He like smokes weed with his friends, and he parties, and he wants to corrupt our little sunshine girl. So it's very much a grumpy sunshine. It is a like corruption trope. Also, the smut in this book was incredible. Loved it. It was like spread out through the book very well. I thought it was like at really impactful moments in the story, and their relationship together was everything. It was so cute from like where it starts to where it ends. So satisfying. Long story short, I'm going to buy a physical copy because I have to annotate it. Like, I just need it, you know what I mean? The next book that I gave a 3.5 was Horror Hotel by Victoria Fulton. First of all, one of the most stunning YA horror covers I've ever seen. Like, can we all just admire this cover? absolutely stunning. A+ to the person who designed this cover. This book was really fun and like not scary. The plot twists in it were actually really fantastic, but it's much more of a YA thriller versus a true horror in my opinion. But we follow this group of high schoolers who have their own paranormal ghost hunters type YouTube channel, and they have a whole like social media presence and following, and they decide to go to this haunted hotel that's in downtown LA to do an investigation. So if you like ghost hunters or ghost adventures, you would like this book, except it's much more like fun and thrilling, like I've said. One of our characters in the group is, what do you call it, like she's a medium, so she can see ghosts, she can kind of communicate with ghosts, and she's like their main investigator, but then everyone else is kind of along for the ride and does like other things to support the group. The plot twists in this book, there are some ghosties in it. There is that paranormal, like supernatural element to it. It's really, really short. It's under 300 pages, I think, and I listened to the audiobook. They had different voice actors for the different characters, but there's one thing that like, maybe this is why I thought it was more like funny and not scary. There's one character who is Australian, and the voice actor who was doing the Australian accent was so bad that it was like making me laugh. But overall, a really good time. I do recommend the audiobook if you want like some silly giggles, but I feel like reading this physically, it might be a little bit more scary that way. Next book that I gave 3.5 is Death by Dumpling by Vivian Chien. This is a Kindle Unlimited cozy murder mystery. And again, just really, really fun. It was like a little longer than I think it needed to be. It was 350 pages, but whenever I want something quick and fun to get through, I'm definitely gonna return to this series. There's like 8 books in this series, and the main character is so relatable. So our main character has kind of fallen on hard times. She recently went through a breakup with this boy who absolutely broke her heart, and she got fired or just left her corporate job. So she's living with her best friend back at home, and she's working at her parents' restaurant. She's living her best server life. It's not as bad as she thought it was gonna be. Love that for her. Post-mating it up, she's delivering some food to one of their regular customers who everyone knows has a shellfish allergy. Well, later that day, they find out that he died because he got shellfish dumplings. He got shrimp dumplings, and they just completely killed him. So obviously she's one of the suspects, and so is like the cook of the restaurant, and she has to work to not only clear her name, but figure out who actually killed him and pulled off this whole scheme and framed her. My last 3.5 of the month was Flock by Kate Stewart. This is really interesting. I'm curious if I reread this, if I'll still give it a 3.5 or if I'll rate it a little bit higher. The thing about this book is it's not what I was expecting. So this was pitched to me as a reverse harem romance, dark romance book. And it does meet that criteria. However, it's not a true reverse harem. I think that this would be a good dark romance book to get into if you are just like trying out dark romance reverse harem type books and you want to see like what it's all about. This is a very good like beginner book for that purpose, and that's kind of what I used it for, so I think that's why I did enjoy it. But I buddy read this with Sarah from Sarah Lorraine Reads, and we kept going back and forth. We were like, do we like this book? I don't really like it right now, and then something else would happen and we'd be like, okay, we like it again. The love interests, one of them was very, very cringy. There's certain plot points in this book where it was very cringe. There's others that I cannot stop thinking about. They were so good. I am team Dom. I love Dom, like so much more than Sean. So much more. It's not even a question, okay? It's not even a question. The scenes with Dom were absolutely everything to me. This is much more, in my opinion, of just like a polygamous relationship type trope and less of a true like reverse harem. So this was 3.5 stars. However, I was very intrigued and I didn't know where this was gonna go, like how it left off. I think that Kate Stewart did a good job. So immediately after I picked up Exodus, which is the second book in the series, I absolutely tabbed everything in this book. Like, this is my first 4-star of the month that I'll talk about. This was so much better than Flock. I think this is one of those cases where it's like the first book is kind of the build up, setting everything up, and then the second book is where you really start to get into the gritty details and like everything is happening. It was amazing. I cannot stop thinking about these 2 books, but Exodus in particular, oh my god. Read this book just so that you can get to this book, okay? And I'm not gonna go into the details of this one because obviously it's the second in a series, but what I will say is Tobias King is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. Enemies to lovers, the most stunning, like, slow burn. Oh my gosh. But also Dom in this book. Dom is everything. I would choose Dom every single day over Tobias. Anyways, so this was a 4-star read for me. I almost gave it 4.5. It's probably more of a 4.5. I couldn't give it like a true 5 stars. I don't know why. It just didn't feel like that full 5-star moment for me. Okay, 3 more books, my friends. The next one that I'll talk about that I gave 4 stars is Small Favors by Erin Craig. This was the first book that I read by her, and stunning cover moment. Can we just? So gorgeous. I feel like I've talked about this book quite a bit. I was reading it. I started it and was reading it on some reading sprints that are on my channel. So if you want to hear more and read with me as I got through this book, I will link that reading sprint video like down below and up above. So very briefly, I gave it 4 stars. I did really like it. I thought that it was suspenseful. I thought the horror elements to it were really good. It's very like cottagecore YA horror with some romance in it. The romance wasn't the strongest that I've ever read, but it was very intriguing. The ending was a little bit disappointing because it felt like it just ended and we were just left like, okay. The ending just felt very, very rushed, where everything else in the book was quite developed. I thought that the suspense in this book was very well paced. Creative setting, creative aesthetic. It kind of gives like secluded Little House on the Prairie, but with like a haunted forest and nefarious gods type vibes. And then we're gonna talk about my 2 5 stars of the month. So the first one that was really a huge surprise for me was The Keeper of Night by Kylie Lee Baker. I started reading this on my Kindle and immediately went to Amazon and purchased the hardcover copy of this book because I couldn't restrain myself. I tabbed a lot of this book as well. Okay, here's the thing. I know that this is not going to be a 5-star for everyone who reads it, but I loved the main character in this book. I loved that she wasn't likable. She really isn't. She's very selfish and imperfect, and she's on this journey to like find herself, and she kind of puts her loved ones like on the back burner, and she's kind of a villain. Like, she's honestly kind of a villain in this story, but I was here for it because I thought that Kylie Lee Baker's syntax and writing style in general was so beautiful. Some of the quotes in this book, like, I had no words. I was eating this writing style up like it was my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Let me just read you a couple lines to illustrate how gorgeous her writing is. Time is ribbon in their hands, to cut or twist or tie around your throat. They can freeze time so solidly that you're no longer a part of the world caught inside a painting. They can grind time forward so slowly that you're trapped in viscous amber, spending centuries taking a single breath but agonizingly conscious. I'm sorry, okay. His eyes seemed to watch me too deeply, like they were unwrapping the layers of skin and flesh, trying to determine the color of my soul. I can't deal. Her writing style really carried the book. Like, there were times in this book where the plot wasn't super strong. Like, I don't think that once you get into this book, you're gonna be able to see the plot points that are upcoming. Also, like, the battle scenes in this book, you know what's gonna happen type thing, but the writing, you stay for the writing style. You stay for the characters. So good. Let me explain what this book is about. That might be helpful. So our main character is Ren Scarborough. She is half Japanese Shinigami, half English Reaper. She grew up in England, but she has always been an outcast and always been made fun of and looked down upon because she's that half Shinigami. Well, circumstances kind of come about where she's forced to flee England to save her life, and her brother comes with her, who is a full Reaper. They try to restart their life in Japan, and her goal is to leave her Reaper life behind and truly find herself and come into her own purpose by living her Shinigami best life. They approach the Japanese full-on death god, and she has to make a proposal to say, please accept me as a Shinigami, I want to collect souls for you. And the Japanese death god says, okay, but you have to kill these evil spirits that are like taking too many souls for themselves. And once you kill these 3 insanely powerful spirits, I will accept you as a Shinigami. So she has to go around and kill the yokais. I am obsessed with how dark this book is. It is a dark fantasy horror. That's how I would describe it. There are parts of this book that are very gory and descriptive, and I loved every second of it. I loved every single millisecond of it. And I immediately pre-ordered the second book in this duology, which is coming out in September or October. I think the beginning of October. It's gonna be such a vibe to read the second book in this series in October. And then the pièce de résistance, A Court of Silver Flames by Miss Sarah Janet. Obviously I gave this 5 stars. I would give it 10 stars if I could. Absolutely stunning. I will not go into my whole spiel about this book because I did a whole reading vlog for this book, which I will link up above and down below if you're curious. This was everything. Like, this book, I want to just reread it, and I also really want to reread A Court of Mist and Fury very soon because this book made me miss Sarah Janet's writing so much. Like, it felt like a warm hug just diving back into this world with these characters after a very disappointing House of Sky and Breath. Reading this for the first time, it really reminded me why I love SJM's writing as much as I do. So this was everything. I loved it so much. And that is it, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I do reading journal content. I obviously do book content like this video, and then we do a monthly live reading sprints, which is such a fun time. I also have my other socials linked down below. I will catch you in the comments, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye, friends.